Welcome to CRM Audio, the Power Platform Business Applications Podcast. I'm Joel Lindstrom, and joining me today is George Doubinski and Shawn Tabor. Gentlemen, how are you doing in these weird times?
As well as can be expected.
I'm fine. Thank you.
So let's see. So we're pretty much all working from home now. All trips have been canceled. All conferences have been canceled or moved to virtual. We had the virtual MVP summit. We can't talk about any NDA stuff, but George, Shawn, what were your thoughts on the first and hopefully only ever virtual MVP summit?
I liked
sure
it a
can't
lot.
talk about NDA stuff. Just once.
What?
We can talk about NDA stuff once.
Oh, yeah, once, and then that's it.
Yeah, go ahead, George. You first.
Okay, Shawn, you were saying.
I really enjoyed it. I did. I found that I did miss the camaraderie, but it was nice to be able to see everybody on the webcam that did, cam up. And I was able to see a broader range of sessions because I didn't have to run from building to building, which was great. And there were some sessions where I was keenly interested and basically got the run of the show because I just asked as many questions as I needed to, and no one else was really talking. So that was nice too. But all in all, I thought it was executed very well.
Yeah, I thought they put it together for the time they had. They did a great job. So kudos to the MVP group and all the people who were involved in that, because it was not an easy undertaking to shuffle the deck with so many sessions. It reminded me of the Netflix documentary Bill Gates, where he and when he was in high school, he and his friend basically solved the unsolvable scheduling problem, and that was one of the applications they built. So I can imagine just lining things up and getting speakers and logistics when you had so many people attending so many different sessions going on at the same time. And basically they worked that out in about a week. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah. And Teams held up very well. I was very impressed with the quality of the sessions in terms of Teams working.
Right. I guess what main thing I learned about Teams, and we had every session people were complaining about, I can't see the chat. Can't see the chat. So here's the big lesson learned from Teams. If you're on a Teams meeting for somebody else like Microsoft, if you join from your environment, you don't see the chat. But if you log in from the organizer's environment, then you see the chat. So if you're ever in a meeting and don't see the chat, that's why switch environments, and you will see the chat.
Yep.
But
So how come I see the chat right now, even though I'm a guest?
I think it's a Microsoft thing. I think it's specifically
it's
meetings
in
with
the settings.
Microsoft's because
Oh,
when
you mean
I had,
Microsoft? Yes, Microsoft tenant. Yes.
yes, it's probably a tenant level setting. So specifically, if you're in a call with Microsoft and you don't see the chat, switch over to the Microsoft tenant.
I did enjoy the whole thing. It was interesting to see a comment from other MVPs, not business application MVPs, that they felt that the entire event was disjoint and they felt lonely and things like that. And I felt exactly the opposite. It probably speaks more volumes of our group of MVPs, I suppose, and it's what you make out of it, because I felt we had a really good group going. We had chat in background going independently of the summit, making fun of presenters and things like that, So I felt very, very much intact. In fact, Nick Dolman organized virtual Joeys, so we had pub meetings. So everything was just as usual, except physical presence. I mean, I did miss, hugs and handshakes and exchange of currencies. Speaking of currencies, Joe, where's my money? Yeah, I did. I did enjoy it very much. In fact, my concern is that it went so well that perhaps it will be virtual from now on. So we should give a negative feedback. That's what we should do.
I miss seeing the pictures captured in the meetings of George and Shawn falling asleep in the boring sessions.
Well, and all the sneaky.
That's a litmus test, right?
Exactly.
I just looked at my pictures of George and Shawn falling asleep in meetings in years past, and it was just like old times.
But as a litmus test, it's like, okay, should I send you a picture of me asleep? What? It's like, would that do it? Anyway, but it's. I felt it was quite good. Teams did work. If I have to whine about something, it's probably video, like mutual video exchange in Teams. Perhaps a bit of the bandwidth hog. Like, for example, Zoom does it better when everyone switches their video on. But then again, Zoom probably doesn't have 44 million people using it, right? So it's just a matter of scalability. I don't know. Look, I'm not into that technology, so I can't be a judge of that. I felt that it held up reasonably well. All the issues, most of the issues were localized. Basically, it was picnic. So problem. What's picnic is problem in a chair, not in computer. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
So most of the problems were picnic kind of problems, and presenters were good. If anything, it highlighted one of the challenges of the summit because everyone starts with the same kind of token slide deck, perhaps five or so slides explaining where we are as a platform, as a company, and so on. And by the seventh presentation, you just get to the topic already. Right, we've seen it all before.
I did feel kind of sorry for some of the newer MVPs because when you first get your MVP award, you hear about how awesome MVP Summit is, and you're really looking forward to it, and then for it to be canceled probably was a letdown, especially then to hear if you hear people complaining or saying, "Oh, it's not as good as it was," because you don't have anything to compare it to. But hopefully next year we'll be back. We'll be back to normal. I thought, it was still a ton of information and got to see some of the things that were referenced in the Wave 1 2020 release notes that I haven't actually seen yet. So that's good. We can't tell you any more specifics about that.
No.
About a day ago, James Phillips published a blog post on the main cloudblogs.microsoft.com about Microsoft's commitment to help ensure business continuity. And the big takeaway is they realize now isn't really a great time to force people to do things because everybody is so shaken up with people working remotely and continuity of operations on limited staff. So they have decided to basically push everything. So based on the blog post, it says that the Wave 1 2020 will still come out in April, but it won't be pushed on people until May or even maybe June. And they're pushing back the unified interface deadline to December. They're pushing back the Teams member enforcement to September. So I guess do we call it the May update now? I guess we still call it the April update, but you won't have to take it until summertime in North America.
Wave, right?
They don't call it the month wave anymore. They call it the Wave 1, Wave 2. But it's.
Yeah, but it's still 6 months of changes throughout those 6 months, to my mind.
Right. So I have a question. Basically, the way I see it, I don't think you can fully enforce team member licenses until you kill Classic UI. because it's the switch that says go unified interface only that determines whether or not your teams are enforced. So technically, I'm thinking that team member enforcement, if you're still on Classic and want to be a laggard, you're not really going to be enforced until you have that switch to a unified interface. I might be wrong, but that's my take on it.
You sound very confident, but I'm thinking it may not be true.
Okay.
Like, what about enforcement if I assign team license and start accessing stuff through API and build my own API? Is that legit, or is it going to be blocked? My understanding was that it's blocked at the platform level, so a bit lower than UI.
It could be. I've been in conversations with Microsoft people who were saying that the switch is actually that setting that says unified interface only that turns off Classic UI. But again, I could be wrong about that.
Where did you hear it from?
I can't remember. I can't reveal my sources, George, because I don't remember them. And related story, the Power Apps blog yesterday published the official death notice for the Classic Outlook client. We've been there before.
I think everybody's happy about that.
Everybody's saying, what? It's not dead already?
Exactly.
So basically they give up on parity. Is that it?
Well, I mean, what are we missing? I can name probably 2 things that are missing right now. And then probably a dozen things that the Outlook app has that the Outlook client doesn't. So how do you define parity if there's new stuff in the new client that isn't in the old one? And there's a few things. The things, let's see if I can name them. Tracking tasks.
You should be on the Power Automate marketing team.
Okay, so if you were to make...
We've got so much new stuff.
Making a pivot table or matrix or whatever.
Old stuff is bad. Old stuff is really bad.
The stuff that's in the old client...
How you define new stuff? New stuff is much better than old stuff.
Can I talk now, George?
Yes.
Okay, so the stuff that's in the old client that is not in the new app. And it feels funny saying new app because we've had it for 3 years now. But in the newer app, the stuff that's in the old one, you got the address book sync. That doesn't happen with server-side sync. You don't have the folder paradigm, but I still say we're at parity for that because you can find and open any record from the Outlook app. It's not like in folders, but it's equivalent and in some ways better because you've got Quick Create in there. You've got recently viewed records in there. You've got Relationship Assistant. So you got all that. The other one, so tracking tasks is the other main one. Other than that, on the then Outlook app side, you've got the ability to search for any record. You've got Quick Create. You've got Relationship Assistant. You've got a number of other things, like the ability to configure it, which you can never do with the Outlook client. So I guess you tell me, are we at parity yet? Oh, and it works on mobile, works on Mac. Forgot that.
I think we're close enough. To the problems that you have with the COM add-in. I mean, they were so numerous when I was having to deal with that on a daily basis that I think we're close enough to where it's time to let it go. And to my
reminds me, we have in Australia. Yeah, to your mind. Yeah, finish.
No, what I was going to say, to my mind, this really impacts on-prem installations much more than web.
But they can continue using. Like, death doesn't mean...
Right.
What does it mean,
they're
death?
Just not going to support it anymore.
Yeah. It reminds me, we have a singer in Australia. It's kind of, what you call it, crooner or whatever, like popular music, called John Farnham. He was called The Voice. He's got used to have really nice voice. And he got older and things like that. So then it's like the tour called The Last Tour or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then a year later, he's done like The Very Last Tour. Yeah. And just kept going. And it's like never ending. The very last of the last tour. And he just keeps going, and it's just laughing stock by now because people saying like when it's gonna end. So he is like deprecated again, The very last deprecation, the final deprecation notice.
The Outlook client is the Rolling Stones of Dynamics features.
Oh, Keith Richards, yeah, like drop from the palm tree, head first, still going strong.
That's right. But I'm personally.
Speaking of which, should we record our own Imagine song?
Oh, jeez.
No. That's a no.
That's a no. That's a no.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm not upset about it being finally put to bed. It needs to go.
I mean,
it's just an issue for when you're implementing. If there's an option, I find that a lot of people just like the com add-in look and feel more than the Outlook app or the D365 app for Outlook. Sometimes, especially on the IT side, and then you always have problems with that com add-in. So I'm just glad it's going to be gone.
Right. It's interesting to me. This is a statement of how people's opinions change and stuff. But it's interesting to me. Hold on.
We're holding on.
For dear
Okay,
life.
Joe's gone. Okay, tell me a story, Shawn. Tell me something positive, not something deprecates. So what's new in field service?
There's a lot of cool stuff coming in field service. Especially if there's a lot more reasons to use IoT, which is great. There's some really cool stuff coming down the pipe for remote assist. I'm very excited about remote assistant guides, to be honest.
Is that like turning your phone into a VR device?
Yeah, mixed reality. Yeah, it's really, really, really cool. And some of the stuff that they're working on in the go forward past next release is really exciting. So I like where they're going. I'm cautiously optimistic about the integration with supply chain management. I want to see where that goes, and especially how you can adapt it to non-Microsoft ERPs. Because, I mean, the reality is not every customer is going to have supply chain management or, what was finance and operations, right? A lot of our customers
not
have,
anymore, not these days. Yeah.
No. A lot of my customers have either Oracle, SAP, something like that. So I love the direction they're going, especially with the CDS stuff. I just want to see how easily extensible it'll be for other ERP systems.
That's good. That's good. Sounds good, because I need to explain all of these to partners remotely in upcoming months. We've got training. People want to get trained, and field service is really high on agenda of a lot
nice.
of orgs.
Well, good thing we have a
particularly
series of what's new in
government.
field service videos coming up on CRM Tip of the Day, right?
Hopefully, we recorded them.
The first one's published today.
Until I get my money, that's gonna stop. I don't understand what happened to the monthly payments.
You stopped the flow of Tim Tams.
That's right.
Speaking of money, out of my recent travel, which kind of ended up abruptly and not in the country where it's expected to end, but I suppose I got lucky. I got out in time, got home in time, didn't catch anything, felt really bad, so ended up like getting tested. We had enough tests in Australia, so I could just call and schedule the appointment. So which was
Lucky
really
you.
nice. Yes. But I had like a bit of fever and sore throat, so kind of symptoms, and I just came back from Germany and Switzerland. So yeah, so I got a bit lucky there, and Well, where I was going, I was going to say something nice about Germany. Not so nice. This has surprised me most. Couple very technological advanced societies, Japan and Germany. They have, you would expect them to kind of go with their daily without any cash, right? These are two societies that still have strong affinity with cash. I had this challenge: go through as many countries as possible without cash, and I was well on my way on that trip. And then in Germany, I wanted a cup of coffee in Microsoft Building. You know, as a cafe on the ground floor in Microsoft Building. You can pay with the Microsoft badge, or you can pay in cash, but you cannot pay with credit card. It's kind of, it took me back. It's like, what? You guys serious? It's like, yep, we are serious. Same in Japan. In Japan, they love their cash. So any explanation?
I think it has something to do, if I was to guess, both Germany and Japan were very poor after World War II. And
I was just about to say, as I was
people
talking,
who have lived through very hard financial
Yeah.
times, they save cash. And there's Asian culture also is in a lot of places pay cash for things. But also, you know, I've been reading some things about cashless society and whatever, and it's argued that cashless society is disadvantageous to extremely poor people too. Any place there's a black market, you will have cash.
Interesting. Disadvantageous in what sense? That they can't get credit cards or debit cards?
You can't,
or
poor people, it's not easy to get credit and credit cards.
It's not that way in Star Trek. They're cashless. There's no abuse in the Federation.
Oh, yeah, of course. But no, I was just an observation. I have no problems whatsoever, but just an observation that it's quite common. And interesting enough, neither is a tip in society. At first, I thought that societies where people tend to tip would be kind of a bit more cash-driven because people try to, you know, set aside tips and kind of not declare them and things like that, get a bit more money into their pocket. But both Germany and Japan, they're non-tipping societies, especially Japan. Right. So we had taxi driver literally chasing up to give us the change back. And it was like, literally was like 95 and we give 100 and say, keep the change. And, you know, that it's a foreign concept to them. I wonder if like when you build a multilingual system, like common data service and multilingual, like supporting 43 or how many languages, right? Do you have to kind of leave some room for these cultural differences, like someone chasing you with the cash and trying to give you a tip back and things like that? So some concepts could it be that some of the concepts are really foreign in other cultures, like UI concepts? Or offensive?
Could be.
Well, I mean, you have languages where you read right to left instead of left to right, so that's a UX concept.
No, but that's UX experience. I'm talking about cultural differences. Like conceptually, I understand where image could be offensive. Like if you use the same background,
right?
I don't know. Some people may find this. Remember this woman in 2013, Serum 2013? I don't know. Maybe some people find
there's still
image.
Oh yeah,
there's still somewhat regularly people finding things that are localized, localized weirdly and things like that. I remember that was something that Polish MVPs and other people in countries that aren't huge, were regularly bringing up with the translations of new features and things like that.
Look, there is ambiguity, definitely. Though someone was bringing up ambiguity, like with the word accounts, Was it German? No, I think it was some other language. It was ambiguity with the word account, and say they translated it differently. They translated as a bank account, and bank account and customer account in that language were two distinct words, and they picked up the wrong one. So literally everything in your system is like contacts and bank accounts. Right, so that was kind of cute and interesting. Speaking of limitations coming into the future, remember I mentioned people started getting messages that their instances are going to be deleted. So effectively, what seems to be common is that if you don't have paid capacity in your tenant, then some non-production instances may be pushed to deletion. Let's call it that way. Did I just invent that kind of pushed to deletion?
Yeah. Well, I think, when a trial gets deleted, it's not really deleted for like 30 to 60 days after that. So let's just say that did happen. I just heard anecdotally
with SalesForce.
I just heard anecdotally that if you have a trial and it gets deleted, you can still within a couple of weeks pay for it and get it back. As opposed to SalesForce, which in July is canceling their backup and restore service, which wasn't a great service to begin with. They said, I'll post a link to the article, but they've decided that it wasn't worth it anymore. And if you read the article, like the knowledge article, currently what they have is it costs $10,000 or more per incident and takes up to 8 weeks to restore the data, as opposed to common data service where we have a point in time restore where I could today go in and restore my database back to, which I had to help a customer that messed up. They did the classic export the spreadsheet of contacts or companies and then sort the spreadsheet incorrectly and import it in, and 40,000 companies were screwed up. But
I'll tell you one thing. It's got so ridiculously fast. I was kind of questioning if it's working at all, because I went in as I need to do a backup, and I kind of push the button backup. I'm just sitting staring at the screen like for 10 seconds. And then I realized it's done. Like literally 2 seconds after I push the button, it's done. And I'm like, that can't be it. That's not possible. Suspicious. When something works and really fast and quick, it's really fast and it can't be that fast. So I decided to do a test restore, and restore went like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And it can't be that fast. But it was literally split seconds between backups and restores. So whatever technology they use, we know what technology they use, right? But it's ridiculously fast. So I don't know what SalesForce is using. And as far as value for money, customers in what it was, NA14 region. What was the region name?
Yeah.
You remember a few years back, it was region 14.
2016, that was when that was.
Yeah, so I think customers in that region may beg to differ.
Yeah.
About viability of regular backups and restores.
Right. And somebody was making the point that I'm sure Salesforce was losing people's data on a regular basis. We hear about it. And that may be true, so they might be doing some kind of backup for system operations. But what I'm talking about is that I think is a more real threat than the redundant cloud storage, the cloud data centers going down, is you mess your own data up and need to restore it. That's the only time I've had to use the CDS backup restore was somebody screwed it up. Yeah, so
I agree.
I was doing a project with actually developing a Canvas app, and all of a sudden the Canvas app was gone, and somebody had it was the sandbox we were working in. Somebody had decided to refresh it from production and copy production there, and I went and And when you restore an environment in the Power Platform Admin Center, it tells you like everything's going to be gone after you do this. But what I found is I went to backup restore and went to like an hour ago before they had done the restore, and we got the database and the Canvas apps back. So from anecdotally, I've found you can even after you wipe out your database, you can still go. And I don't know how long after the fact, but you could still, within a few hours, go and restore your database from before that operation.
Speaking of Canvas apps, have you guys tried libraries?
Yeah, I have a library card.
I have not.
Get some books every week.
Yeah.
Ha 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 ha.
What kind of libraries are you speaking of, George?
Component libraries.
I haven't used them in an actual app. I've dabbled with them, and I have people on my team who've used them.
Best thing ever.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's kind of on my books. It turned reusability of Canvas and collaborative development on Canvas from nothing to 100 miles an hour. Definitely, because now you can develop components, put them into libraries, so you can develop. One of the advantages of model-driven always been that you can do collaborative development. You can work on the same stuff at the same time, and you could never do it in Canvas. So now in Canvas, you can make people work on different components, package those components into libraries, then in final application, reuse those components from the libraries. And here's the best part. When library gets updated, when you open an app, you get a notification and you can selectively update, refresh your libraries and components from those libraries. It's like literally checking the boxes. And it's kind of cool stuff. I really like it. I'm skeptic when it comes to Canvas, and here I'm sold.
Yeah, I see components
Absolutely.
used a lot for branding apps. If you have a specific look and feel you want your controls, creating the library of components, and then when you start a new app, doing them. There's also been some interesting things created in the community and shared on the Power users. Our colleague Hardit, who goes by the Power Addict at thepoweraddict.com, probably the most hated control within Canvas apps is the date picker, and he came up with a really nice configurable date picker component that he shared that I thought was really cool. I'll send you a link here, George, but lets you basically customize everything about it. And the problem with the standard one is you can't customize anything. It's you get what you get. So it makes me think, as far as approaching something like this, when should we be doing a PCF control versus just a component like this?
So help me understand if I'm just doing this wrong. I looked at components because I thought they were very cool and it had a lot of possibilities, but it's not a no code solution if you haven't already have the component created. So if you're creating the component, you have to write some degree of code, which I think is blocking me from really getting.
Hold on, what do you call in code? You have to write expressions if you want your component to be a bit more useful
PCF
than a
controls
brick.
with components.
Right. Well, and when I say code, I mean I'm literally saying it could be. Well, I guess I shouldn't say code.
It's more advanced expressions.
Yeah, so I think that's.
But how is it different from writing an app? So to me, the main difference between PCF and components, Canvas components, is that Canvas components can be created by local developers. It's basically, imagine like if you, in the world of spreadsheets, that's kind of creating, packaging some spreadsheets like templates and things like that. Whilst PCF components in the world of spreadsheets would be kind of external services, something like stock market. Did you know that actually Excel can pull stock information?
Yeah.
Full on. I didn't know that, seriously.
That's one of those.
one of
those tricks, and that's one of the things I will say. Google Sheets has a little bit more of those type of tricks than Excel does, but Excel has a number of those you can do. Are you revamping your stock tracking to use Excel? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking of I couldn't find a decent app to track stocks in this insane market, and because I have to take into account currency conversion. Like I buy stock with Australian dollars, but I buy stock like if you buy on New York Stock Exchange, and then you invest Australian dollars, but then when you sell it, it goes back to Australian dollars. So you have to take into exchange rate into account. And anyway, and plus, if you win capital gain tax, unless you hold stock. So anyway, there's a lot of what if scenarios, which Excel is really good at. So I thought of writing an app like Canvas app for that, because I couldn't find a decent package tracking kind of portfolio tracking system to my liking. There are plenty of those, but to my liking, couldn't find any. But now I'm thinking like Excel should be good enough, because there's a lot of what if scenarios. Now, going back to the components, so Shawn, I think the difference is that components like Canvas, they're really for makers, whilst PCF, it's more fine-tuned more fine-tuned machine, and definitely created by pro developers. You have to know TypeScript,
right?
And they're more kind of on the control level, individual control, like date picker, whilst components could be a bit more broader, like setting dialog could be a component or something like this. They're a bit kind of, I envisage components would be a larger pieces of functionality. You still have to kind of get your head around of expressions, because you communicate with components through the properties, right? So, in fact, I don't know about you guys, but to me, the biggest change in Canvas world from model-driven and from development in general, the biggest change for me mentally was to change your attitude from the imperative development, as developers tend to do. If this, then do that, blah, 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 to kind of Excel-like expressions. So you kind of pull the properties, you set the properties to values, so you operate in a reverse fashion. So once you get your head around that instead of like when user pushes the button, set background to, red, instead of that, you set background to red, being dependent on the button push.
Right.
So it's kind of, you reverse your thinking, and then things start falling into places. And I think that's, maybe you find it difficult conceptually to kind of get your head around that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I understand my level of ability to write code is nil. So whenever I get into a situation where it seems like I'm going to have to write code, I shut it down real quick. I don't even try, because I probably should try to get out of my comfort zone and try to learn at least a little, but I always find that I end up shutting it down and I just say, ugh.
Well, that's where to me, some things that were frustrating with Canvas apps that should be so easy, but where you had to write expressions. It wasn't that I'm afraid to write expressions, because I've been writing like Excel expressions and stuff, and for years. Right. But it just seems so unnecessary to do things like filters. I love how they brought the system views in there, and even now having a view selector on there. That to me is so much better. And reading in the release notes that they're going to have it default the fields to the default view and everything. That's very common sense enhancements to make that just make it. And that's where I think the components come in, is if you as a maker are finding yourself doing the same thing over and over, or combining controls to make, in different ways, packaging them up as a component so you can reuse them. It's a maker time saver, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was quite impressed with the way libraries kind of designed to work. I wouldn't say it's 100% without any bugs, and they are They are in previews, though components are still marked as experimental, so which is odd. But anyway, it's in preview now.
When before the libraries, if I'm not mistaken, you had to put your components in an app, and then you could copy them from one app to another, but you couldn't really share them.
Yes, and the nice thing about libraries is that within the library as a component maker, what you can do, you can have your components, right? And consumers don't have to consume all of your components. It could be selective. The other thing what you can do is, we're just about to wrap up, but the other thing you can do, you can throw in test screens into your library. And they kind of, when components are consumed, test screens are not there. But as a component creator, you have those test screens where you test your components. So library includes those as part of the design. So it's really nice.
Very cool.
That's exciting. Well, we've reached the end of our time. Thanks, gentlemen. Good to talk to you. Enjoy.
That's a bit deflating.
Enjoy your time at home. Don't get cabin fever, but go out for a walk if your local authorities let you. Get some fresh air.
Exactly.
Are you talking about me or Shawn? I thought Shawn is free to roam in Florida.
Well, within reason.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, guys.
All right, guys.
Join us next time.